Let's be honest. When you hear the letters GDPR, your eyes probably glaze over, right? It just sounds like another one of those super dense, kind of boring regulations. But it's really not. In fact, it's one of the most important documents, a real charter of rights for our modern digital lives. So let's break down what it actually means for you.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Every single click, every search, every time you buy something online, all of it generates data about you. So the big question is, who's really in the driver's seat with all that information? Before GDPR came along, the answer to that was, well, it was pretty murky. This regulation was created to answer that exact question.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll break it down into 5 parts. First, we'll get a handle on what personal data even is. Then we'll look at the key players involved. After that, the core principles they all have to follow. Then the good stuff, your fundamental rights. And finally, we'll see why GDPR has such a massive reach around the globe.
Okay, so first things first, we got to get the language right. Because, to really understand our rights, we need to be on the same page about what we're actually talking about.
So what exactly is personal data? Well, under GDPR, this definition is incredibly broad. I mean, way broader than you might think. It's not just the obvious stuff like your name or your email address. Think bigger. We're talking about your phone's location data, your IP address, even sensitive health information. Basically, if it can be traced back to you, a specific person, yep, it's personal data. And if you thought that was broad, wait till you hear about processing. This term is even bigger. It's literally anything a company does with your data. The very second they collect it, that's processing. When they store it on a server, processing. When they analyze it for ads, or even when they just delete it, it all falls under this huge umbrella of processing. All right, so that's the what. Now let's get into the who. GDPR is really clear about defining the specific roles and responsibilities when it comes to handling all this data. And this is so important. The number one most important player in this entire regulation is called the data subject. So, who's that? It's you, it's me, it's any one of us whose data is being processed. The whole point of GDPR is to put the individual, you, right at the very center of the story. Okay, next up, we have the controller. This is the organization that's calling the shots. They're the ones who decide the why and the how of processing your data. So for example, if you're on a social media site, that company is the controller. They are in charge. And then you've got the processor. Now, this is a totally separate company or organization that processes data on behalf of the controller. So they aren't making the big decisions. They're basically just following instructions. A classic example? Think of a cloud provider that stores data for another company or a third-party service that handles their payment processing. So, here's where that difference really matters. It's all about responsibility. Think of it like a movie set. The controller is the director. They're calling the shots, deciding what happens, and they hold the ultimate responsibility. The processor? They're the actor, just following the script. And this division is absolutely crucial for figuring out who's accountable if something goes wrong. Okay, now we get to what I think is really the philosophical heart of GDPR. These aren't just, friendly suggestions. These are fundamental rules, non-negotiable rules, that every single controller has to live by. You can almost think of them as the 6 commandments of data protection. So first, data has to be processed lawfully, fairly, and transparently. No secrets. Second, it's got to be collected for a specific purpose and not just used for a bunch of other random things later on. Then there's data minimization, meaning companies should only collect the data they absolutely need, nothing more. Of course, it has to be accurate, it can only be stored for as long as it's truly needed. And finally, it has to be kept secure and confidential. And this all leads to a really powerful 7th guiding principle, accountability. This one is a total game changer because it creates a fundamental power shift. It's no longer on you to prove that a company misused your data. Nope. The burden of proof is now on the company, the controller, to prove and be able to demonstrate that they are following all of these rules. The whole thing has been flipped on its head. So we've got the key terms, we know who the players are, and we've got the principles they have to follow. Now it's time for the main event. What does all this actually mean for you? Let's dive into the incredible, powerful rights that GDPR gives you as a data subject.
Okay, so Chapter 3 of GDPR is basically your personal toolkit for data rights. You have the right to ask a company for a full copy of all the data they have on you. You have the right to get them to correct it if it's wrong. You have the right to have it erased completely. You can even tell them to restrict how they use it. You can object to them processing it at all. And in some cases, you have the right to data portability, meaning you can take your data and move it to another service. Let's just focus on one of the most famous of these for a second, Article 17, better known as the right to be forgotten. Just listen to this. The law gives you the legal power to tell a company, hey, I no longer want you to have my information, and they are legally obligated to erase it without undue delay. This is such a profound way to reclaim your own digital footprint. So right about now, you might be thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but isn't this just a European law? And, well, yes, it is. But its impact is felt in corporate headquarters from Silicon Valley all the way to Shanghai. And there's a very specific reason why. It's all because of something in Article 3 called extraterritorial scope, which is just a fancy way of saying it has a global reach. Here's how it works. If a company anywhere in the world, say in the United States, offers goods or services to people who are physically inside the EU, then that company has to comply with GDPR. It doesn't matter where the company's office is, it only matters where you are. But why do all these global companies take it so seriously? What's the real incentive to comply? Well, it pretty much comes down to one single number: 4%. That's because the penalties for getting this wrong are absolutely massive. The maximum fine can be up to 20 million euros, or 4% of a company's total worldwide annual revenue from the year before, whichever number is higher. Now, for the big tech companies, that 4% can easily mean billions of dollars. This is a law with some serious financial teeth. And all of this leaves us with one final, crucial question. GDPR may have started in Europe, but its core ideas, things like data minimization, user consent, and putting individual rights first, are now shaping laws all over the world. It basically set a new global standard. So the real question isn't just about compliance anymore. It's about whether this framework is the blueprint for the future of all of our digital rights everywhere.